Hello friends, I'm at a very historical site today. I am at Stinking Springs, New Mexico. The site is located approximately 14 to 17 miles east of Fort Sumner, which would be off this direction. On the morning of December 23rd, 1880, Sheriff Pat Garrett and his posse tracked Billy the Kid and his gang from the Brazil Wilcox Ranch, which is about 3 or 4 miles east of here, again that direction toward Fort Sumner. And they tracked them through the snow. There was still a visible trail. It was very snowy and freezing that morning. So sometime after midnight they started tracking the gang. And Pat Garrett had a pretty good idea where they was headed from by the tracks. And he was also familiar with an abandoned rock house out here built by Alejandro Perea. And I think sheep herders usually use that quite often for shelter when they were out here. So when the posse arrives here, they see a couple of horses tied out in front of the rock cabin, and they assume that there's probably a couple inside with the gang to keep them warm. It was very freezing that morning. So at this point, they've got two choices. They can either rush the cabin through one door and risk a close-up gunfight with Billy the Kid and his gang, or they can wait it out in the freezing temperatures, 3 hours to daylight. So what they did, they chose to get in this arroyo here. It's a natural arroyo. I'll pan around where you can see it. You can see how it forms an arroyo or a ditch, whatever you like to call it. But there's an embankment here right across from the front door of the cabin. We're going to walk up this embankment. So the posse would have probably laid down here in the snow in this embankment for cover and concealment. And they could also keep an eye on the front door of the cabin, which is over there about where you see that clump of bushes. Just a little to the right of it, actually. So they would have laid down here in the snow, and they had 3 hours to wait until dawn. Well, when the sun started peeking over the eastern sky over here, they heard movement inside of the cabin. A few minutes later, Charlie Bowdre appears at the front door of the rock cabin over here. We're going to walk toward it now. And he has a feed bag in his hand to feed his horse. And Charlie Bowdre made a fatal mistake that morning. He wore a large brim sombrero type hat that Pat Garrett believed Billy the Kid would be wearing. So here you can see the foundation of the rock house. And the front door would have been right about here. The arroyo where the posse was crouched was right over there. We see that clump of bushes down below that. So when Charlie Bowdre steps out, Pat Garrett thinks it's Billy the Kid, and he orders the posse to fire. And Bowdre's immediately hit a couple of times fatally, and he stumbles back inside of this cabin here. I'd be inside of it back then. Let you see the foundation. This would have been the approximate view Charlie had, because the front door was right about here. So when Charlie stumbled back inside fatally wounded, Billy the Kid supposedly told him to go back out there and get some of them before he died. So whether he was pushed out the front door or come out on his own accord, we don't know for sure. But Charlie did step out right here with his pistol in his hand, and he started walking toward the arroyo, toward the posse. I'm gonna walk you back over here. And as he got pretty close to him over here in this arroyo, he was just about dead on his feet. And he told Pat Garrett, he said, I wish. Probably wished he hadn't worn that hat that morning. But first-hand accounts say that Bowdre fell into their arms somewhere here in this area, and they laid him down in the snow in the embankment over here, or the arroyo, because the posse was right about here, covering the house. And it then became a waiting game, so we'll walk back toward the foundation. The kid refused to surrender. Garrett asked him to come out, and one account says he said, "Go to hell, you long-legged son of a bitch." So then they had to set in and try to wait him out. Okay, Now that we're back over here at the cabin, let's just take a look at the foundation. Got a noisy train going by. So anyway, they basically settled in over there in the arroyo to wait the posse members out. At some point during the day, they heard picking on the back side of the cabin over here, which would have been on this side. So Garrett sent some of the posse members around the back. They fired a couple of shots, and the kid and them quickly gave up on that. And eventually the outlaws surrendered after Pat Garrett sent up to the Brazil Wilcox Ranch that way toward the west for food and bacon and stuff like that. Well, eventually the smell of the cooking bacon and coffee on the campfire over in that arroyo over there won over, and the kid decided it's better to get a square meal than to be inside this shack freezing. So they hung a white flag or a white handkerchief out the window and they surrendered. And Garrett did accept their surrender, and he gave them a square meal. And then after that, he transported them to the Brazil Wilcox Ranch, where they all stayed the night, and they took the body of Charlie Bowdre back there. And then eventually they made their way to Fort Sumner and into Las Vegas. And then the kid was finally jailed up in Santa Fe, New Mexico to await trial. But this is where it happened at. Famous Stinking Springs, New Mexico. Now, if you watch Young Guns 2, you've probably seen the shootout at the cabin scene. In that movie, they incorrectly had Doc Scurlock getting killed here. Doc actually died in Eastland, Texas in 1929, so they messed that scene up pretty bad in the movie. It was actually Charlie Bowdre. He was one of the original regulators who fought with Billy the Kid in the Lincoln County War. Again, for those that have never been here, the front door would have been right about here. You can see the foundation. Front door was about center on this little cabin foundation here, facing to the south. And the arroyo was right over there where you see all those bushes and stuff. Anyway, I don't think there's too many videos out here that shows the side of Stinking Springs, so I wanted to share it with you. I've been researching Billy the Kid for many years, close to 20 something now, a little over. And I've been out here many times, but I've never done a video to share with you folks. So if you've never had the chance to come out here, it's a pretty neat site. It is on private property, so you do have to obtain permission, which I did. The property owners are very nice folks, but make sure you obtain permission before you come out here. I hope you enjoyed this tour, and I hope I made it clear enough for you. If you got any questions, feel free to comment, and I'll do my best to answer them for you. Thank you.